Number 1.
Green was last seen at the Silver Slipper Bar on Henry Jackson Boulevard in Albany, New York on February 26, 2010. Earlier that day, he had been to the Duane Lounge in his hometown of Schenectady, New York. He has never been heard from again. The day after his disappearance, Green's red 1990 Cadillac with the license plate number ESS 1737 was found in Colonie, New York. Authorities believe Green is missing under suspicious circumstances. He was involved with drugs and his disappearance may be drug-related. They're looking into the possibility that Anthony Inf Davis and Ricky L. Thornton may have been involved in his case. Photos of Thornton and Davis are posted with this case summary. They were charged with kidnapping and conspiracy in the disappearance of marijuana dealer Stephen Jackson, and Thornton was also charged with murder. Several other defendants were also involved in the case. Davis pleaded guilty to kidnapping and testified against the others. Their first trial ended in a mistrial, and the second time they were acquitted of all charges. Davis and Thornton are also considered persons of interest in the disappearance of Ashley Carroll. Like Green, Jackson and Carroll disappeared from Albany in 2010. Green's case remains unsolved. Schenectady and Albany police are both investigating.
Number 2.
Ivory was last seen at her home at the A Building of Washington Courts in Utica, New York, at 4 p.m. on March 6, 2004. She called her mother later that night to say she was coming home for dinner, but she never made it. Ivory has never been heard from again. She was going through a rebellious period at the time of her disappearance and was classified as a runaway for several years. 2 months after Ivory disappeared, Plummer Reed Jr., a distant relative of hers, called her mother and said he was going to tell her what had happened to Ivory. Before he could do so, however, he was shot 3 times in the head and the line went dead. Plummer survived. His cousin, Benji D. Reed, was later sent to prison for attempted murder. Another man, Marcus Williams, was also charged with attempted murder but ultimately pleaded guilty to misdemeanor 4th-degree criminal facilitation and was sentenced to time served. Williams admitted to supplying Benji with the gun. Since the shooting incident, Plummer has denied knowing anything about Ivory's disappearance. Ivory may still be in upstate New York, possibly in Watertown, Syracuse or Auburn. She could also be in the Tryon, New York area. Her mother says it is uncharacteristic of her to be out of touch with her loved ones. In 2007, authorities announced they believed she had been murdered. Ivory associated with a number of drug dealers in the Utica area, and it's theorized she willingly accompanied one of them somewhere and that person harmed her. Investigators believe they know what happened to her and they think they've already spoken to several people who know her whereabouts. Several of these individuals are currently incarcerated. Ivory's case remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Lourdes and her family immigrated to the United States from Cuba when she was a child. She graduated from the University of Florida at Tampa with a major in international affairs. Lourdes began modeling and performing with local ballet troupes during her college years. She moved to New York City after she completed college and attempted to begin her modeling career in earnest while working as a hostess in restaurants. Lourdes relocated to Milan, Italy in 1983. She found success as a European runway model during the following years. The fashion industry trends shifted towards younger models in the late 1980s, and Lourdes experienced difficulty finding employment as a model. She returned to the United States in 1988, the same year her passport expired. Lourdes met Robert Marx, the son of the late entertainer Zeppo Marx, and the stepson of Frank Sinatra, in the early 1990s. She reportedly fell deeply in love with him, but the relationship ended 1 year later. Her friends stated that she began exploring religion at that time, as well as shopping more than her financial resources allowed. Lourdes spent the winters at her parents' residence in Florida in the early 1990s and continued to search for print work as a model but was greeted with little success. A friend said that she refused the offer of a Spanish television commercial around that time, as Lourdes did not to work in Spain. She returned to New York City on a permanent basis in 1993 and was employed as a fit model, a job she reportedly detested. Lourdes' friends said that she became concerned about her personal life by 1994. She attempted to win over one of Marx's friends, Mohammad Khashoggi, the son of Saudi Arabian oil magnate weapons dealer Adnan Khashoggi. Associates stated that Lourdes constantly shopped for outfits to impress Mohammed and reportedly became convinced that another woman was performing rituals designed to win Mohammed over herself. Lourdes reportedly believed that the other woman was using spells from the African-based religion Santeria to ruin Lourdes' chances for a relationship with Mohammed. Lourdes began rooming with the woman in New York City but forced her to move out shortly thereafter. Lourdes' associates stated that she became increasingly paranoid by 1998. Many of other friends believed that the end of Lourdes' modeling career served as the catalyst for her depression. She found a job with the Saxon Group in New York City in 1998 as a modeling scout. It did not provide her with the income she desired for her lifestyle, and Lourdes promptly resigned from the position, although she needed the salary to pay her bills. Lourdes began visiting a woman who practiced Santeria in the city on a regular basis around this time. She was apparently hoping to cast spells on Muhammad and Barney's department store's Cy and Jean Pressman in an effort to begin a relationship with a wealthy man. Lourdes was eventually employed at Winston Staffing, a modeling agency in New York City, in the late 1990s. Lourdes resided in an apartment in the 400 block of East 83rd Street in the borough of Manhattan in 2000. She allowed her younger brother, Mario Gruart, to stay with her while he was unemployed during the year. Mario had been arrested for marijuana possession in July 2000 and apparently lived with the support of wealthy benefactors. His roommate died of natural causes in 2000, and Mario requested aid from his sister. Lourdes' friends are divided on her impressions of her brother. Some stated that she adored him, while others claimed that she was wary of Mario's intentions. She had bailed him out financially several times, and shortly before her disappearance, she asked him to move out of her home, and they argued. Mario told authorities that Lourdes announced she was traveling to Europe on October 14, 2000. He claimed that she left her residence carrying a large green bag and departed in a waiting car at approximately 8 a.m. Lourdes has never been heard from again. She left all of her personal belongings behind, but her lingerie has never been discovered. Lourdes and Mario's mother said that her daughter never traveled without alerting her to her plans. Mario moved most of Lourdes' possessions out of sight in her apartment after her disappearance and replaced her belongings with his own items. He claimed that Lourdes said she would be returning to New York City in several weeks, but authorities learned that Lourdes' passport expired in 1988. Investigators began to doubt Mario's story and searched Lourdes' apartment. Mario admitted that he disposed of her couch shortly after she vanished, but said that he and Lourdes had agreed on the decision and new furniture would be arriving shortly. Authorities said that the couch has never been replaced and traced the item to a refuse yard in New Jersey. Investigators were never able to locate the item, but they do not believe it contains evidence relating to Lourdes' case. Authorities viewed Mario as a possible suspect for several months after Lourdes' disappearance, but have since stated they do not believe he was involved in her case. Investigators are unsure if Lourdes vanished of her own accord, committed suicide or was the victim of foul play. There were rumors circulating around the time Lourdes disappeared that claimed she was involved in prostitution as a means of additional income. Some people speculated that could explain why her lingerie was missing from her residence, as she may have operated from a different location. The theories have never been confirmed, however. Lourdes' friends' opinions remain divided on her whereabouts, and her case remains unsolved.
Number 4.
Leslie disappeared with her 2 children, Timothy and Julie, from Katana, New York at 1:30 p.m. on February 5, 1977. She picked up the children at their father's home on Grandview Avenue and drove away in a white 1974 300 Series Ford Maverick with a green roof and the New York license plate number 636 WNA. They have never been heard from again. Leslie was separated from the children's father, Timothy Sr., and living with her mother in White Plains, New York, but she and Timothy Sr. had an amicable relationship. Timothy Sr. wasn't concerned when Leslie didn't return that evening because he assumed she and the children had spent the night in White Plains. He reported them missing at 6 p.m. on February 6. Authorities have ruled out Timothy Sr. as a suspect in Leslie, Julie and Timothy Jr.'s cases. He cooperated fully with the investigation and also hired a private investigator and spent considerable time and money trying to locate his family himself. He has since left the state of New York. There were no indications that Leslie had planned to walk out of her life. She hadn't taken any clothing or personal belongings with her and didn't withdraw any substantial sum of money from her bank account prior to her disappearance. Her mother died in 1994. In her obituary, it says Leslie survived her. The circumstances of the Guthrie family's disappearance are unclear, and their vehicle has never been recovered. Their cases remain unsolved.
Number 5.
Hakiki was a first-year law student at Quinnipiac Law School in Connecticut in 1999. She resided in Hamden, Connecticut at the time. She was last seen at approximately 2:30 p.m. on November 12, 1999, as she left her final class on campus. She was planning to spend the weekend at her family's home on 159th Street in the Flushing area of the New York City borough of Queens. Hakiki never arrived as scheduled and has not been seen again. It is uncharacteristic of her to leave without warning, her parents said. She called them every day and usually spent weekends at their house. Authorities believe that Hakiki planned to tell her then-boyfriend Fahad John Popel that she did not want to marry him. Investigators think that Hakiki's boyfriend learned about a rekindled relationship with a previous boyfriend prior to November 12 and was angered by the news. Hakiki's black 1997 Volkswagen Jetta convertible was discovered abandoned in the Grand Union supermarket parking lot on Northern Boulevard and Marathon Parkway in the Little Neck section of Queens on November 14, 1999, 2 days after her disappearance. There was no sign of a struggle at the scene, and the car was locked. Authorities found a gold necklace Hakiki normally wore inside the vehicle. The jewelry had been given to her by her boyfriend. Hakiki's mother said that her daughter's car was parked less than 1 block from Fahad's residence. Hakiki often parked at the location when meeting friends in the vicinity. Her family members filed a missing persons report with law enforcement the day her vehicle was discovered. Investigators announced that they considered Fahad the prime suspect in her disappearance in 2000, more than 1 year after Hakiki was last seen. Shortly after her disappearance, a witness reported that a man carried a rolled-up rug into the Long Island automobile repair shop where Fahad and his brother, Farhad Frank Popel, were employed. Photos of Fahad and Farhad are posted with this case summary. Authorities searched the premises and discovered maggots under a hydraulic lift. The insects were tested for evidence of Hakiki's DNA in case her blood was near the lift. The results were inconclusive. A singed clump of hair was discovered in the shop sometime after 1999. DNA testing proved the hair belonged to Hakiki. Investigators announced that evidence suggested the hair had been violently ripped from her head. Fahad had since relocated to Fremont, California, where he was arrested in early August 2002 and charged with Hakiki's murder. Farhad had by then moved to Ontario, Canada and become a naturalized Canadian citizen. He was charged with hindering prosecution in her presumed homicide. Authorities believe that Fahad killed Hakiki after learning of her refusal to marry him, then he and Farhad disposed of her remains by burning them with an acetylene torch. Fahad was convicted of her murder in April 2006 and sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. In May 2006, Farhad pleaded no contest to 1 count of hindering prosecution. As part of the deal, he served no jail time and was instead required to return to Canada and not re-enter the United States for at least 3 years. Hakiki is a graduate of Newtown High School and St. John's University, where she majored in paralegal studies and made the dean's list. Her body has never been located.
Number 6.
Joseph was last seen near Sam's Point Ice Caves in Ellenville, New York on January 16, 1987. He and 3 friends, John Lafarge, Wade Marks and Kelly Diaz, were staying at the Mount Cathalia Lodge when they decided to go for a late-night drive in Lafarge's Subaru. Joseph was driving when their car got stuck in the snow at approximately 3:30 a.m. The 4 young men were unable to push the car out, and Joseph left the car and went to get help at the village 5 miles downhill. Diaz and Marks also abandoned the car a short time later, then Lafarge left as well, separately from the others. The 3 other boys made it to safety, but Joseph has never been seen from again. The others assumed he had gone home and didn't realize he was missing until the next day when Lafarge went back to retrieve his car. An extensive search turned up no sign of Joseph. The inclement weather seriously hampered the search efforts. There was a great deal of snow and high winds, and most of the roads on the mountain were impassable. At the time of his disappearance, Joseph worked alongside his mother at the auction barn in Nappanich, New York. He was interested in rock music, particularly the band Kiss. Both of his parents have died in the years since his disappearance, but his aunt and his friends hope he may yet be located.
Number 7.
Jeremiah was playing with friends outside his residence on LaFontaine Avenue in the New York City borough of the Bronx at 4:30 p.m. on June 25, 1985. He was playing in the playground behind his grandmother's 3rd-floor apartment in the Twin Parks housing project in the 2100 block of LaFontaine Avenue. His mother could see him through the window, then she and a male relative left to go shopping. When Jeremiah's grandmother, who was his legal guardian, called for him and he didn't answer, she initially thought he'd gone with his mother on her shopping trip. They began searching for him after his mother returned home without him. The children Jeremiah had been playing with said he had been in the sandbox with an African-American man called him by name. When Jeremiah approached the man, he grabbed him and they disappeared. Neither of them have never been seen again. Jeremiah's parents both became addicted to drugs after his disappearance. His mother has since entered recovery and is still searching for her son. Police believe he may have been sold after his abduction, but Jeremiah's mother believes he was taken by an abusive, jealous former boyfriend of hers who had previously threatened to abduct the child. Little evidence is available in Jeremiah's case, which remains unsolved.